All right, next up we have Brandon and Cloud9.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Mairs, and I started Cloud9 about 4 or 5 months ago. We're currently based out of a Stanford incubator, and it was really a project that kind of stemmed off another company that I started that's a smartphone company that's doing tremendously well, that Ed actually knows a little bit about. And so we started to try to research building a communication satellite, and we did. And we got involved in it and realized how expensive it was and how long of a wait it was, like 2 years to get launched on a traditional spacecraft. So we decided that we would do our own launch, and we did. So we teamed up with a world-renowned rocket designer who holds the world record at 386,000 feet, as well as a gal who started a very successful high-altitude balloon company. And we're going to take our 22-foot rocket up to 135,000 feet, and we're going to launch it because there's way less wind resistance there and gravitational force. And then it will go and travel to about 220 to 240 miles. And then our specially designed nose cone on the end of this rocket will open up and deploy up to 16 1U cube satellites. We managed to build an impressive, excellent team of a board of advisors. There's also myself, as well as some engineers. We have in-house counsel, IP. We filed several patents. We already have a $1.5 million purchase order. We have several letters of intent. And right now, we can offer launch for about 50% less than traditional rocket like SpaceX, Blue Origin, etc. And that also still enables us to get about a 65% margin. And our communication satellite that we also do gives us about a 50% margin. We can also license that signal and make about a 95% margin. So with our investors investing, with the research that we've done, we're looking at making somewhere around 20 million in year 2, which is going to give our investors about a 14x return on what we're trying to raise. Thank you.
So you mentioned $1.5 billion purchase order. What is that project about?
That's for that communication satellite. That's to launch that.
One satellite launch?
One satellite, yeah. It's a communication satellite. It's very unique. It has a 90-mile radius. It's a 1.6 to 2.4 gigahertz radio antenna that works with cell phones. We can license that technology out. It was designed for our phone, but we can also license it to Samsung, Apple, anybody.
From order to launch, what's the ramp-up time?
The ramp-up time? See, that's a great question, actually. So our first launch is going to be less than a year from now, but one of our big advantages is that we can launch literally within like a few weeks because we have a mobile deployment system, and we already have clearance to launch in Arizona as well as Mexico.
What's the regulatory environment to be able to launch satellites from balloons like that? Can anybody do that, or do you need some type of approval from?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to have approval from the Office of Space of Transportation, ITAR clearance. There's all kinds of clearances. And they're not impossible to get, but they're there just for safety.
And what's your timeline to get those?
Those are actually relatively easy to get. The only thing that's probably one of the biggest challenges is for that satellite is to get approved by NASA. It takes a little while. It could take up to a year.
So NASA's involved too? Because you mentioned another agency.
What was that?
You mentioned another agency before, so NASA is involved as well?
There's all kinds of agencies, the UN Office of Space Transportation, the Office of the US Office of Space Transportation, et cetera, et cetera.
And if you launch just south of the border, would it be totally different then? Just curious.
Not necessarily. It's kind of like a globally adopted law. You could still, if you launch illegally, you get like 5 years in prison. You don't want that.
No, you don't want that. Thank you.
I wanted to clarify. You mentioned that's the communication satellite. So are you building satellites or the rockets or the actual launching process?
Great question. So our core fundamentals are launch. 1U to 2U to 3U CubeSats. That is another project. It takes a little bit longer. But we're also going to be doing communication satellites to sell to cell tower companies, carriers, things like that.
What are your backgrounds? Are you engineers, or where did you study everything?
We have engineers. My personal background, I've started a lot of companies and I build stuff. My first company was pretty successful. And I started a marketing consultancy and then a cell phone company that's done pretty well so far. And now this.
Who is your competition? Do you know other players?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really just the big guys, because there really isn't too many big guys right now, because a lot of these other rockets that are trying to launch, I mean, some of these guys are launching at only like 400,000 feet, and it's like, it'll just go. And so SpaceX, Blue Origin, Interorbital, and Orbital are some of the big guys. Those are the main people.
How easy or hard is it to copy your invention if somebody else wants to do the same? Kind of what's proprietary, what's protected?
We have a little bit of IP right now so far, but I've hand-selected some of the best people in the world to do this, and some of the only people, like the world record holding Kai Michelson. There's nobody else who's come even close to that, and he is on my team. He is a partner, as well as the balloon company. Where are you going to find balloons? There's not too many people making high-altitude balloons, so I've managed to get a hold of everybody first and really get a hold on that.
Does the balloon survive the launch of the rocket up there? Or?
What was that?
Does the balloon survive? Is it recycled? Does it survive the launch of the rocket? Or?
No. Well, technically, there's two different kinds, but generally speaking, it does come back down. They can retrieve it.
Okay.
So you mentioned you're going to build the satellites, you're going to do all these different activities, and it looks like you have the engineers on your team. What's your background? Have you built any companies in the space before? Who are your advisors?
This is my first space company, but I'm no stranger to the technology and communications side of it with the smartphone company that I built. Before that, I built a composites company that made parts for high-end sports cars, and there was a lot of technology involved in that too that got acquired.
What is the valuation for those? What is the size?
Yeah. So pre-money right now, it's like $6 million.